Welcome to ManCave, where we have manly conversations about things and issues that are affecting men. My name is Eric Latif. In this series, we are talking about the biological clock. Do men have a biological clock? So is there a certain age where a man feels, I ought to have achieved something by this age? Is it your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s? We are speaking to various men who are approaching various milestones, and we are asking, so what are you feeling as you approach that milestone? What did you feel as you passed that milestone? We've spoken to somebody who was approaching their 30s, and they've said, what do I feeling? Approaching 40s and feeling the age of the 30s should have been the one of consolidation, of wealth, of experience. So I should be at a certain level in my career. I should have some sense of financial independence. True or false? 40s, life begins at 40. Does it? 50s, okay, what does that mean? It's half a century on this earth. Today, our guest is Michael Gitonga. Michael Gitonga is a communication specialist, and he joins us now on ManCave. Asante for joining us, Michael.
Asante for inviting me. Thank you, Eric.
You know, you've interviewed me before.
Yes, several times actually.
And I've interviewed you before.
So maybe we can do this
So
interview
this is
together.
not an interview, it's a conversation.
It's a conversation.
Right?
Perfect.
Man biological clock. Throughout your life, and you'll tell us now the latest milestone that you've celebrated. What have you gone through? So let's start with the milestone. Latest milestone in terms of years that you've celebrated.
So here we're talking about age.
Yes.
49.
49. Looking at 50 like this.
Ndio hii naitazama ikikuja.
It's here.
Actually, based on some of the information I have, let's say 50. Let's say 50. So looking at 51.
50 years old. You've gone through that in your 20s, finishing school, starting a career, and approaching the 30s. By 30s, starting a family, or family has started?
Actually, for me, I started in my 20s.
Right.
And if, with hindsight, I wish I started earlier. However,
In your teens?
not not teens, but it was late 20s.
Okay.
But I wish I started, again, it's really dependent on where you are. But if I had the opportunity of redoing it and the exposure and time and things that I know now, I'd probably have started at 25. I started at 28. So I remember one particular incident, somebody who was telling us, if you've not made it in life by 35, forget it. It's a wrap. And that was very scary.
What do they mean by making it by 35?
Now, that's the thing. Everybody has a different definition of making it. But generally, making it, we are talking about financial status. Are you married? Let me talk about the Kenyan dream. You live in a 3-bedroomed house, drive a 4x4, have 4 children and 1 wife. That's now the Kenyan dream per se. So making it, maybe that's what they mean. But with time, you begin to realize that making it actually does mean different things to different people. And that comes with age. But going back to the incident of 35, I remember it gave me a lot of pressure because I think I got that info maybe when I was around 30. And thinking that I only have 5 years.
5 years.
To make it.
Make or break.
Make or break. And making it at that point in time meant you've basically got a nice place you're living. You're married. You have children. People can look at you and say, you're with something. You're with it. You're doing something in life. We're looking up to you. Yeah. And that gave a lot of pressure. But with time, that definition changes.
So when you hit your 35th year, had you made it?
Not according to what I thought at 30 making it is. I hadn't. And that's because career-wise, there are certain things and milestones that I'd looked at and I thought, I haven't reached where I'd want to be. There are many things I kept thinking I've not achieved. One of the things for me that has been a passion and a drive is what I'd call being financially independent, financially free.
Yeah.
For me to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it, financially speaking. So at 35, I was not there. And quite honestly, I don't think I was anywhere close to being there.
So did you adjust then the expectation? Did you adjust your calendar and said, okay, so I haven't hit this by 35, so by 40,
yes,
I'm not going to hit it?
Actually, what happens, Eric, is that at 15, a 25-year-old person looks old. You think, they're very old. At 30, you begin to think a 40-year-old is actually not that old. At 35, you begin to think, actually, even 45 is not that old.
Yeah.
At 40, you're thinking 50 is not, because you're getting closer and closer. So, to answer your question directly, yes, you adjust. Both your mind and reality also hits you and you realize, okay, things don't work the way I had planned them to. But something else that I think is also revolutionary that comes with age is that you begin to define your own age. You know why they say that life begins at 40? Is because suddenly at 40 people begin to become stubborn. And I say stubborn, quote unquote. I don't think they're stubborn. They just realize that I've been living a life for other people. So at that point, at 40,
It's independence.
It's independence, and you realize, wait, I don't do things because I'm told. I don't do things because I want to please. I don't do things because my peers are doing. So you get to a point where when everybody else is going out for that party and you don't feel like, you tell them, guys, I don't feel like. Why? I just want to be at home. To do what? Nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, so they think, they're suddenly becoming stubborn or whatever, but it's because you've suddenly realized that you've been living a life for other people. I think even in terms of those milestones, you begin to get to a point where you're like, whose life am I living? Am I happy where I am? Am I going to be happier because I've achieved this? Because again, something that happens is that let's take maybe a simple thing like a car. At some point when you're young, you're thinking, when I get a car, oh man, I'm going to be so independent. All the girls I want will come. Everywhere I want to go, I'm independent to go. Then that car comes. Those girls don't come. Where you wanted to go, you realize you need fuel.
Yeah.
That car does also not work the way you expected it to work. It breaks down. And at some point, you actually wish you're in a mat. So suddenly you think, wait, this car doesn't give me what I thought it did. So with time, all these things add up and you think, they actually don't give me what gives me pleasure and joy. And that's where now you begin to define for yourself, what is it that, what is making it for me? What is it that is life for me, as opposed to what everybody else is saying? And at that point, you can walk when everybody else is driving and you're okay. You can get into a mat and everybody else is saying, why are you getting into a mat? You're a celeb. Nini mbaya na wewe Eric. Tunakuonanga pale kwa TV. Kwa TV tunakuona pale uko radio. All those pressures just suddenly fall off because now you define who you want to be.
As you're maturing. So let's look at the Mike Gitonga of the 20s, right? So here you are, you have a young family, you are, peaking and growing in your career. You have all these expectations, societal expectations from your extended family, from your own family as it's growing. What was going through your mind?
A lot.
What were you feeling at that point in terms of your definitions of who Mike Gitonga is?
A lot was going on, and it's because there's a lot of, let me call it noise. And from those quarters you've talked about, let me give you an incident. I once met a friend of mine who we were in school together in Patch. And when I met him, he wasn't the brightest of students when we were in school. And here I was thinking, man, I'm doing well, niko sawa, I had a nice job as far as I was concerned. And we began to talk, and he mentioned something in regards to income that he was making. And I left that meeting very depressed. Because suddenly, I thought, wait, I thought I was doing well. But here is a guy who I thought wasn't doing that well. But his income was something else. What am I saying? What I'm saying is, at that point in time, there's a lot of noise and comparisons that come from all over. Your family is giving you expectations. We expect you to have 3 children and what.
So and so.
Yeah, so and so. At your place of work, you have a guy maybe who you interned together, but now they're possibly looking at a management position, but you're still mahali ulikuwa. So there's that pressure. You meet with a guy like that from school, and he's also giving you pressure because, and the truth of the matter is you don't even know whether what he told me is the truth, but it looks like it is true.
Yep. He's painted this picture.
He's painted this picture. So
and then
all
there's
that,
your spouse as well.
Exactly.
And
there's your spouse.
They're thinking, look,
yeah,
where are we going?
What's going on? I mean, you're the man of the house, so what's the direction we're taking? So there's all this pressure from all over, and it does get a bit daunting, and it can stress you out. But at some point, you need to just stop and ask yourself, who am I? Rediscover who you are, and what are the things that make me happy?
I want us to go through that journey, step by step. Because then, okay, that's a pressure that you're feeling from internally, from external. And then at 30, you meet this person who tells you 35, if you haven't made it,
Forget it.
just go
It's
dig
a
a
wrap.
grave and bury yourself.
Yeah.
And that increases now the level of pressure. And I'm curious to know, was this just defined by what this person said, or was it also being reaffirmed by everybody else around you? From your work colleagues, from your own expectations of where you wanted to be by 35 when you were younger, from your close family and friends and relatives.
There's a word you used, milestones. And those milestones, over time, I have discovered have been put there by society. But if I ask you, Eric, who is society? It's your friends, your blah, blah, blah. So those milestones are put there by somebody else. So what I have learned, and this is my personal experience, over time, is that those milestones do not have to apply to me as Michael Gitonga. Mike on the mic, Mike on the bike, whatever you're going to use, those milestones do not have to apply. Those are societal pressures and times. If you take a child, for example, there's a card you're given when they're born, and you're told that at certain number of months they should be seated, another number of months they should be walking, another number of months they should be talking. And those are milestones, and they're good because they keep in check that child, whether they are okay or they need medical attention. However, there are some children who don't walk at 9 months, they'll walk at 1 year, but that doesn't mean that they're abnormal, doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with them. It is good to have that milestone for you to just put checks and balances, for you to gauge. But I think at some point you need to sit back and ask yourself, what are my personal milestones? Away from society, away from the noise, away from all that. But that, I must say, doesn't come overnight. It's something that I have learned. And to talk about the process you're talking about, at that 30 years when I was being told by 35 there was pressure. But at 35, when it's not happened, there are two ways you can look at it. You can either cow down to pressure and become depressed and now suddenly get some weird habits, withdrawal symptoms, some go into drinking, others into drugs and all manner of stuff. Or you can decide that, wait, I've not made it at 35, but every Monday morning is an opportunity for me to make sure by Friday I have a plan for how the other Monday is going to work out for me. And that now is the energy that I took. I'll give you another example of how I got into radio. And I did sound check, test, blah, 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 and all this. And the person who was doing it for me at that time, they told me that, get a day job. Radio is not your thing. That's wachana nayo. But there are two ways I could have reacted to that information. Either agree with them and say, by the way, forget about radio, accept and move on, or use that as fuel to prove, by the way, you're wrong. I think I have something in me that I can do. So I use this as fuel. What am I saying? At the point where we get to this pressure that we're talking about from people, you can decide to use it for or against you. For you is where you can say, forget about you guys. Those are your milestones and it's fine. But based on your milestones, I'm going to make sure that I do everything and anything possible to get to the next 5 years to a point where all of you guys will be like, how did you do that? Yeah, so use it as fuel for yourself. And I think that's the positive side of it. Of course, there are those now who cow down to pressure and things happen and you literally just give in and you decide, you know what, 35 reached, I hadn't got the job and it's okay. So I'm done. So let me sit here and watch the rest of the world, doing what they need to do. Nah.
So did you redefine your own milestones then?
Yes. I redefined my own milestones.
And what were they pegged on? Was it 1 year, 2 year, 5 year milestone? Or was it just life achievements milestones?
I'd say they were based on my definition of making it. I'll put it this way. When you're doing a work plan, for example, you have the core mandate. Out of that core mandate, you draw objectives. Out of the objectives, you draw activities that add to this objective. These activities should have KPIs, key performance indicators. So we need a life plan where you say, for me, at 70, okay, 70 might be too far. Say at 50, 60, I want to have retired. and travel the world. Now, then work backwards and say, for me to have that done, I need to make investments now. I need to make sure I'm hustling like I can hustle no more, to a point where I have multiple streams of income. Then they're going to fund that life that I feel I want to do. And based on that, now you work your way. So at that 35, I had to come to that point where I say, okay, what do I want in life? What do I envisage as a good life? What do I envisage? What do I love to do? What are some of those things that I enjoy doing that I can't do now, that I want to do at that age? And then based on that, now work backwards and say, okay, now I need to work hard. This is what to get there. Then put milestones now for yourself, not milestones put by society. Milestones that you put for yourself now, and say by 40, I need to have ensured I have I have 3 streams of income. Why? Because I need to fund 1, 2, 3, 4. Then if I'm to retire by 50, I need 7 months, and then make it very clear that 1 needs to be bringing in X amount, 2 needs, and they need to be passive income, not income that requires me to be there physically.
Presence, yeah.
Yes. And based on that, now I'm able to, and then with time, people now begin to come to you and ask you, hey, how did you get here? And that builds confidence. It makes you feel, hey, kuna kitu nafanya, that's right. And with time, now you go to the level of what they call self-actualization, where you're no longer now looking at self, but how can I impact? How can I help? How can I pass this knowledge to the younger generation and help them grow? So redefining the milestones, definitely, you do that for yourself, but based on what makes you happy.
Your own capability. Well, you're also what makes you happy, like you say. How do you factor in the threats to all this, the unforeseen circumstances that could derail this very well laid out plan? How do you factor them in?
It's all back again to the plan. Once you have this plan, your plan of life, I remember, and thank God for being exposed to very many interviews, even in matters finance. I'm one who loves, financial stuff. One of the things I remember in the interviews that I learned is that, first of all, no is a polite answer. And secondly, factor in when you're doing your financial plan for unforeseen contingencies. And in our Kenyan or African setup, we're talking about weddings, we're talking about funerals, we're talking about people who need to go for medical attention abroad. Those are things that we cannot escape from. And because of the society that we are in, we can't say, I will not participate. However, it's in my budget. So out of my budget, I will say, for, what shall we call it, benevolence, I'm going to give a certain amount of money. If Maggie's wedding comes and I give that amount, there's a funeral for so-and-so, we give that amount, and by, say, the 27th, I've run out of that account.
Exhaust the kitty.
I've exhausted the kitty. If somebody who I did not know comes in, and this may not have been planned, this is where no being a polite answer comes in. I can say, I'm sorry, but I'm not able, and not feel bad about it, because that's the other thing. If you came to me and you said, I have a fundraising for ABCD, honestly, it feels almost wrong in our cultural setup for me to tell you I can't. And yet, unaona niko na gari, sijui niko kazi, so why are you refusing? But there's a way to do that. I can tell you, Eric, I can't do that right now. However, give me 2 weeks. And in 2 weeks, I've already calculated, I know mwisho wa mwezi itakuwa imekuja, have gone to the next month, my kitty now is back to where it's supposed to be. Such that I can come back to you and tell you, fine, I'll make a commitment, I'll make a pledge. I don't have any money right now, but in 2 weeks, I can give you X amount. So no is a polite answer, and secondly, it can be factored. The issue that we have is that we think that some of these things, because they come ghafla bin vu, they cannot be factored. I have a friend who, or rather one of my dad's employees who came once and said, Mzee, naomba tafadhali, mke wangu amepata mtoto ghafla. Mke atapataje mtoto ghafla? Literally, if you think about it, I mean, you've had 9 months to pay. But in our African context, that's how we operate. Mke amepata mtoto ghafla, how? So anyway, I think as much as there may be diseases, there may be death, there may be all that, and we cannot plan so much for some of them are not emergencies.
Okay, let's flip it the other way around. That you have this very well laid out plan, but now you are actually the one who is in need. You're the one who is then diagnosed with this serious medical condition that requires some good amount of money, which you don't have. You still haven't accumulated. And by getting sick, it's also derailing you from your activities.
Your activities and your plan.
Yeah.
Two things. One, we talked about the kitty. Okay? So that kitty is not just for out there. You also have your own. So you've done your insurance, you've done your savings, you've done your multiple streams of income that are supposed to be passive, such that even if I was incapacitated, I'm still able to earn, not become a burden. I know this is not something that we discuss, especially in the African context, but even death is something you can plan for. You can literally say, I have an insurance for my funeral. I have a will written. Those are things that we can now begin to accept, because they are reality. Yep. None of us is coming out of this alive, by the way. None of us. So we can plan for that. Number two, that kitty I was talking about is what I would also call social capital. As much as you're saying no to Eric for this particular incident, I didn't say no, I will not. I said no, give me 2 weeks. So I've not refused. And that's a social capital that we must ensure that we have to be a cohesive, what did I call it? Community.
Member of a community.
Yes, and it works this way. There are those who go to the pub. That is their community. So when it's time for a drink, they'll buy a drink, and today it's my turn, tomorrow it's your turn. The others who, it's church. That is your community. Others, it's the estate you live in, that you're the community leader, blah. So all those are different social capital that you use, or rather that are predisposed to you, because the kind of society that we are in, you're not a lone ranger. So you give, and at the point you need, it will come. Yeah.
You go and...
But you also do what you need to do. If you need to do insurance, do insurance. But at the point where your insurance has expired or has been exhausted because this was not planned, the social capital, we pray to God, comes in. But let's also work not to be a burden.
True. There are many who will try very hard. You know, I've gone through school, I have an undergrad, I have a postgrad, I have acquired all these skills. I wanted to get into the job market at this age. I didn't. Simply because for some reason I just wasn't landing a job. And so that delays this whole plan that you have. Okay? Now speak to those as we conclude. Because there's all these other factors that may come in that are completely outside your control.
Well, I guess one can say life happens, and there are things that you definitely cannot control. But there's a lesson that I was taught by my dad once, and he told me, always earn your keep. And by earning your keep does not necessarily mean that you have to pay for everything financially. If you keep me in your house, Eric, and you're keeping me because, for example, maybe I'm out of a job, I don't have a place, you've just told me, listen, for the next 3 months while you sort your life out, stay here. I have to earn my keep. You know what I'll do? I'll make sure that in that house you will never clean it. I'll be the one to do it. Why? Because I'm there. That's the only way I can pay it back. I'll make sure that if you have a car, you never wake up and find a speck of dust on that car. You clean it. And with that kind of attitude and mentality, there is no way you will remain at the bottom. I'll tell you about a guy who I knew who used to wash my car at one time. And for me, what used to really attract me to his kind of working is he would do it with so much passion, with so much zeal, that everybody would queue for him to wash his car. Then one friend of mine came and asked me, who's this guy? I told him I actually don't know who he is. Long story short, because I know we are restricted by time, he took him up, enrolled him as an accountant. His passion was to wash cars, but he did it with passion. He did it with heart, with grit. Took him and enrolled him into an accounts course. He did very well. Right now, he's an account audit manager of some huge blue chip company. That's what passion does for you. So if somebody is sitting there and saying, well, for me, I'd really want to be an aeronautical engineer, but I didn't have the opportunity, so I'm just going to sit here and wait. Wrong attitude.
I'm applying.
If it's a car that you need to wash, wash it. Martin Luther King said, if you're going to sweep a street, sweep that street that everybody that passes there will know a street sweeper passed here. That's giving weight to whatever you do. It may look like the most lowly of jobs, but do it with passion. You can't keep a good man down. You can't. Who is he? Am I saying that those who maybe don't have that opportunity are lazy? I did say that.
So bottom line, as you are going through life as a man, and you have all these societal pressures and own pressures, the takeout for me from what you're saying is ignore the noise. Sit back and determine your own expectations and your own set your own milestones, and run your race.
I'm a biker, and one of the statements we say in biking, ride your own bike. What that means is that you can do a group ride where you have some people who want to race. And you know, with bikers, my engine is bigger than yours.
Yes.
I have a 1200 and 1050. I can ride faster than you. But you learn with time, ride your own bike, meaning, even if we're in a group, if you guys want to take off, it's fine. I'll ride how I am comfortable. I don't want to race with you. Same thing with life. Live your own life such that set your own milestones, have your own, block off the noise. If you take Eliud Kipchoge, Ineos 159,
yep.
Think about that race. The whole world was focused on this man proving that you can do a marathon in less than 2 hours. There was a lot, there was media, there were motorbikes, there were cyclists, but the thing that he did, he kept his focus on the finish line. There was people cheering. I'm sure there were people even saying, whatever. But his mind was set on the finish line. Why? Because he had to prove, I can do this in under 2 hours. Did he do it? Yes, he did. And he left us a statement. No man is limited. So even in my own life, that's the approach I take. I run the race. There is a lot of noise. There's people saying, but I have my finish line. And my focus is on that finish line.
And nothing can stop you from
Nothing will distract me from that. Nothing. Nothing whatsoever.
Michael, thank you very much for a good conversation.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Asante sana.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching this episode of ManCave. As you've heard from Michael Gitonga, run your race. And he has quoted Eliud Kipchoge, no man is limited. Okay? Go forth and achieve. Thank you for watching ManCave.